This is Ed, and I'm in San Diego, and welcome to Global TV Talk Show and globalbusinessnews.net. This is all about what should be taught in school today, and maybe what shouldn't. Anyway, with us is Dr. Ken Lloyd from LA, um, and we'll get him to introduce himself a lot better than I just did, and Christian Ternedden, who's a master of linguistics, among other things. And he also has a lot of industry experience in global mobility management. And Natalie Ternedden, who's a sophomore in college and has hands-on experience about learning in schools today. So we are being recorded and live streaming right now, and then later out in the networking world. So, Christian, the floor is yours. Tell us what we should be talking about today and what will be your first topic.
Okay, so the first topic, because it's kind of a pet peeve of mine, is personal finance and making children and then teenagers financially educated, at least to some basic level, so that they can then hopefully go and learn what they don't know yet. And personally, I'm very interested in personal finance because I came here from Europe as an immigrant, started with very little, did not really know anything about retirement and how it works in the United States, very different from how it works in Switzerland. And I had to teach myself very quickly how all this stuff works. And of course, I think, if I can teach myself, so can everybody else. I mean, it's not highly scientific or academic. There are very good personal finance tools out there that you can use to, get yourself educated. So then Natalie goes to high school and has classes, and it's called, what is it called? Career readiness.
College and career readiness.
College and career readiness, which sounds very, promising, obviously. And part of the college and career readiness is personal finance. So I'm all ears. I'm like, what are you teaching these kids? I'm skeptical, of course, but giving it the benefit of the doubt. Well, it was as bad as I thought it would be. And I thought about this topic today because Natalie is working. She has a job at Fullerton College as a tutor, and she is getting paid. And we were working on getting her set up with a Roth IRA for her retirement. And as we were talking about it, I realized she knows some of the terms, but she doesn't really understand how the whole thing works. And it is my belief that the school should have taught her that, at least on an abstract level.
Ken.
Well, it's very interesting. I think that is a very important topic, and it's something that really should be addressed on a really thorough and professional kind of basis. At the same time, I know talking about retirement with young people is some long, far off, distant concept, and who knows where everything and anything will be then. So it's easy for it to be set aside when in fact it's very important. And as an additional area, I think to tie in with that would be further training in critical thinking.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just learning and rote and spitting stuff back on a test, what happened in this year, who was this, who was the vice president, but more understanding the rationale, reasoning, and analysis behind that, and be able to apply some of those tools to it, kind of integrating, if you will, the two topics we're talking about in terms of financial planning and career and critical thinking, so that we're really trying to help our young people really use the great brains they've been provided with. I mean, I think back to my junior high school, and Natalie, you're going to love this. What they required was that all the boys had to take shop classes. So I had to take wood shop and print shop, and all of the girls took home economics. And that was teaching them how to do a shopping list, how to iron, how to do the laundry. That's how crazy it was back then. But now, obviously, while things have come a lot further over all these years, I think certainly career financial planning, very important, combined with critical thinking, so that people are less simply accepting of whatever might be pronounced. It's very easy to get into that mindset when you're memorizing and just simply repeating stuff back and getting A's for doing so, or getting reinforced for just doing that.
So I grew up in Brookline, Massachusetts, which is a wealthy suburb of Boston, and excellent public schools. And but I wasn't excellent, and I didn't have my head together correctly. But they did the same thing, even in that environment, privileged environment, that all the girls were in home ec, and guys like me and everybody else did shop. And I couldn't work with my hands well. I couldn't even play the piano when my mother wanted me to take piano lessons. But I could play baseball and run track. And so I did that kind of thing. And I watched The Lone Ranger and I Love Lucy and a lot of movies on TV. And so here I am on TV. I'm doing my thing here. It's not work. It's life for me. So I wish that I was smarter when I was a kid, because I would have gotten more out of long-term thinking, and I didn't have that at that time. I couldn't even get through the month. Couldn't figure out how to read a book. I certainly had some difficulty, although I excelled in algebra. I don't know why I didn't in geometry. But I did really well in communicating, even when I was like 13. So that has proven to be my ticket to ride, but I didn't learn it in high school. So, Natalie, what's it like?
I have a lot to say on this topic. So feel free to stop me if I'm going a little crazy, but um I would like to start it out with saying that I'm not sure exactly what happened over time, but at least the schools I went to, and from what I understand, many different schools here, at least in California, middle and high schools, there is no, well, first off, there is no home ec class, period. And there are very few shop classes. The high school that I went to was the only shop, like they had the only shop class in the entire district.
Hmm.
So, definitely when talking about how you both experience like home ec for the girls and shop for the boys, while maybe making it a gendered thing is not that great, I think having those courses is fantastic. And over time, it seems as though they've just kind of been lost. And I'm not sure if that's like no funding for them, or if, I'm not quite sure what the reasoning is there, but I had no home ec, and I wasn't fully aware of woodshop. I kind of knew my school had it. I didn't know what that meant. And there was only so many woodshop classes offered. So if it didn't fit with my schedule, then just kind of forget it. But they didn't really advertise it either. So I wasn't fully aware that my school had that option. And then furthermore, I think that a lot of classes that handle more life skills have been kind of either lost to the wayside, like I just mentioned, or at least in some instances just aren't taught very well when they really need to be. For example, I took the college and career readiness class. I also took economics. Everyone had to take an economics class my senior year of high school. But the energy given to it, like the teachers, the material, it just wasn't really that stressed upon or important. In my college and career readiness class, we basically watched some videos, and that was the personal finance unit. Go watch some videos at home over Thanksgiving break. Talked about it maybe one time in class. And then in my economics course, yeah, we talked about like, there was much more attention on like how supply and demand works, things like that, which is definitely important. But when it came around to personal finance, it was just kind of like Google it yourself and tell the teacher in a little presentation, in a 5-minute presentation, what you found. And so then people were like, oh yeah, crypto. And it's like, okay, well, at this point, they're also looking at YouTube videos. You're teaching personal finance through random YouTube videos. And I went to in-person public school. So the teachers could have, made an effort, in my opinion. But and in the government class, so senior year, you had to take a semester of economics, a semester of government. The government teachers too. They're like, read this little PowerPoint, watch a YouTube video. I'm going to make my cup of noodles in the back of the classroom. And, I'm glad the government teacher ate his cup of noodles, but I do really wish that he would have actually gone over a little bit more about how the Electoral College works. Because, I'm a huge history buff. I'm really into, learning and understanding things. So I Google things myself. But a lot of my fellow classmates do not care. And if you don't make, if you don't make it exciting, if you don't show them that they kind of should care, they don't care. And so then what happens is you get people my age who I've talked to, and even some of them are my friends, people who have no clue what's going on. They don't know how they don't really know how the US government works. They don't know what economics, even like the basics of economics are. Personal finance, they don't even know what personal finance means. And they have no idea. And they were in the same classes as me, but because there was so little of an emphasis put on any of it, I paid attention. I paid incredible attention, and I kind of mildly got it, but vaguely. So if you're, sick that day, forget it. You don't learn what personal finance is. And so now, like, I definitely feel like there is a struggle. Like, the people my age are not really truly informed of what's going on. They, no home ec, no one knows how to cook. I had to teach someone how to make a quesadilla who was 19. And it's just, I feel as though public high school education, they teach a lot of amazing things, but they also kind of skip out on other really important things. And that is definitely leading to 19, 20-year-olds having no clue how the world works, which in my opinion is very scary because those 19, 20-year-olds are now entering the world, and they have to make decisions with no idea of what's going on. And to me, ill-informed decisions are like probably one of the worst things ever. Like, if you are deciding things about your future, if you are deciding, if you have these massive decisions that you're making and you have no idea what's going on, and so you just choose something because that kind of sounds cool, who knows what you're doing? You might be getting yourself trapped into a crypto scheme for all I know. But it's very dangerous. And so I think that public school has a lot that it can work on.
So I need to jump in and give you my take on this. And
Yes.
because I remember that I didn't understand how the game was played at that age, but I knew what I wasn't getting. And I knew that others were getting more, or I had received it earlier than I was aware of it being available even, But what I'm talking about is public education, and this again is a well-funded public school system in a hot neighborhood, even way back then. So you can just imagine what went on in less funded areas. But again, it's public school systems, not private schools. So the kids of neighbor families that didn't go to the public schools, even in my town where I grew up. My parents, uh, they were millionaires, but they were well off. And, but neighbors were, and they sent the kids to these fancy schools. And they were learning the same topics, but 100% different methodology, strictly hands-on at that era. Now I'm 79 years old, so I'm, you know, that we're talking a long time ago, but they had the benefit of smart teachers, smart people who were teaching. And the system led those kids to get early acceptance at Harvard and Princeton, Yale and Columbia, or wherever they wanted to go. And members of my family also happened to get into that bracket, but I didn't. And so what they learned was from teachers who could, like what we're doing right now, explaining things, live stories mixed with definite learnings applied to across generation, as we're doing at this moment here. And the people who will view this video in England or Africa or Latin America, never mind flyover country in the US. So let's just talk about reality, that what President-elect Trump, one of his things is to close down the federal Department of Education. I'm not sure that's a good idea, but that means bringing it down to the local level, to giving it to the states. And I think that's a great idea. But if the states have the funding and the know-how to, and I don't care whether they teach Bible class or the Ten Commandments or even the Quran, I don't care. But they mix it in with American history, you know, and political know-how and how to go shopping in the supermarket smartly and making choices. Today you can shop better by Amazon rather than go into the supermarket. And learning how to manipulate yourself around all of these choices. But the thinking about American history, the thinking about Great Britain and how it ruled the world at the time. Now, why did that happen? What were they doing that enabled England to be so powerful 150 years ago and beyond? That is worth knowing, because the American system came out of that. And the teaching that I eventually got covered all that, but I didn't get it in the 6th or 7th grade when I should have been done. And others got that in the better school systems or private schools that were well funded. Ken, PhD, you were probably one of those smart kids right away, and knew, got the instruction on how to think about, and got the teachers who knew how to communicate in a storytelling way that could reach into the minds of young people and bring them in to the inside of thinking about. You don't learn that kind of thing step 1, step 2, step 3, but you learn it in parcels and then applying other knowledge to understanding what it all meant.
I found more of that. Yeah, I found more of that kind of approach, frankly, in grad school, where it is very individually focused. I mean, you ultimately do a dissertation on a topic that you've selected, working one-on-one with your advisor as well as with a committee. But as I span back into the earlier years, like you, we were in huge classes, 40 to 50 students in a class. We were the baby boomers. So the schools packed us all in. And it really was not much of a dialogue or interactive education. It was more one way. And that's a terrible way to teach. Even having looked at education from the teacher side, I did do some teaching over at UCLA and the program and the MBA program and all. And the least effective method of teaching, and research shows it, is a lecture. It's just all one-sided. We don't know if people are learning, getting it, interested, if they have questions. It's just hit it and you're gone. And frankly, we had a lot of that in high school, and frankly, a lot of it in my undergraduate education, at least until I got into upper division courses that were finally smaller. Otherwise, we'd sit in an auditorium literally with 1,200 other students, and a professor would come in and tell some great stories and have some interesting information to impart. But that's very different from really digging into the material and going through it. We would have sections that would be composed of smaller numbers of students, but they'd be run by TAs who really were not trained to teach. They were really more grad students on their way to a degree, and they kind of had this job as a way to make a few extra bucks. But in terms of understanding the real essence of education and learning and feedback, and as you say, storytelling, and none of that was there. I think that part of it is just plain luck. We all hit some very good and influential teachers along the way that helped us know more about our interests, our aptitudes, what we really might be interested in doing, going down the road, and truly interested in our learning and growth and development, and not afraid one-on-one. Say, look, this is where you need to develop, or you need to do your homework here, or anyhow, just to get that kind of individualized focus on education. It took a lot of years for me to get to that point. And frankly, coming out of college, I don't know what I wanted to do. I applied to law school, and maybe I want to go to law school. I don't know, maybe I should apply to business school and do that. I just didn't know, and picked an area within the business school offering. Thought, this sounds interesting. So it was not as if by guidance or by a clear career path at all. But I did not want to go into law ultimately. There was a poli-sci major, and it was interesting. It's kind of like reading the news today. But was that a great field for me? Was I coached and counseled? Here's where your aptitudes will take you. It took a while to get beyond that. I hope younger people are getting a little more early individualized guidance. I know the younger generation is more interested in career development. It was more of a focal point. It's more of a focal point today, certainly, than it was back then. But just as a total side note, completely sidebar to the conversation, I think teachers should be paid a lot more money.
Yes.
I just, when I see athletes getting $300 million a year, cool, they bring in revenue and all. And when I see teachers making, you can't even call it a fraction of that. What is it, 1/10 of 1% or something like that, 2/10 of 1%? It's not right. They are handling the most important resources in the country, our young people. And I just think that it should be far more rewarding and frankly encouraging for bright young people to think that's a career option I might explore. A lot of them don't today because frankly, there's more money to be made in so many other areas, including a lot of the crafts, and including in plumbing and carpentry and construction and all. So I think we're losing a lot of very talented people because the financial side of it, talk about financial planning. When I was in school, most of the teachers I knew had other jobs. And frankly, so did professional athletes. When you would go to a professional football game, I would go to a 49er game, you'd open the program and you would see ads for the professional athletes. Frankie Albert was a quarterback of the 49ers when I was growing up. Open a program, it would say something like Frankie Albert Insurance Agency. So even the athletes back then, no joke, you'd see they would be doing other work. And now that's changed, but teachers got left behind. And to me, that is just wrong. And I think it's to the detriment of our young people who are trying to achieve an education.
So in Boston area where I grew up, I may have mentioned this before, prior shows, but Harvard and MIT, Simmons, Radcliffe, some other schools, Boston College, And then there was Northeastern University. Now, that was ahead of its time. It was blue collar, but the people who were there were professors educated at Harvard and MIT and other Ivy League schools who knew what the kids from, let's call it blue collar areas, then were not ready for an intellectual education, but more of a hands-on practical living kind of a thing, combined with so you went for 5 years, and one of the years spread across different semesters, not all at once. You had to work somewhere and get practical training. It's something, could be a woodworking, it could be plumbing, could be electrical, could be retail. They didn't care, but it would be part of the curriculum. And then the kid would need to write a report and do a book report or experience report, and then get up and talk about it in front of the class. That is the answer. There'll always be a need for Harvard and Yale and MIT, but the community colleges today in California are taking that role that was developed a very, very long time ago in Boston and maybe other places, but I just know about that one. Looking back on my life and my preparation for college after getting out of Brookline High School, I could have had one more year in high school to mature more, looking back on it, but I didn't. Somehow they graduated me. Goodbye. But the college that I should have gone to was Northeastern, but the atmosphere that I grew up in, that would have been a downer, not a good thing. And so my dad was an accountant at first before being a partner in a large furniture, home furnishings company. And I didn't want to become an accountant. But I went to a school, a Babson Institute in Wellesley, which is still to this day an advanced educational institution for business, graduate as well as undergraduate. But I was a round peg in a square hole, and that didn't work. And I hated living at home, and there was all kinds of issues going on. And I couldn't wait to get away and do something on my own. And I'll bet there are kids out there today in that same kind of a situation, and they don't know what to do. And this is not a political statement at all, but the people who today don't have a college degree or the equivalency of it think differently than I do, that's for sure. And if they think at all, to take care of themselves. And I think that is a dangerous area for us to get into at this moment, so I'm not going to pursue that. But I don't see the school system, even here in San Diego, which is a very large public school system and very well funded and excellent in some respects and not in others. They're not taking care of kids who don't have a trade. And if they don't have skills on how to use woodworking or make a car work better, never mind fix a computer, then they're going to be replaced by AI. They'll be the first ones not hired. And that's going to be a social problem, and it may become an economic problem. Anyway, I'm not running for office or anything, but the theme of this program fits right into that slot and what's going to be done about it. So public education is important, right, Christian? I mean, it's what's done. Now, in Switzerland, public education is very, very different, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And the school system has very much changed since I went through it. Back in my time, it was basically you had your first 6 years of elementary school, and then you decided whether you went to was called the gymnasium, which is the highest, most academic way to go that would lead to university eventually, or whether you were going to go to school for 3 more years with the goal of then getting into a trade through an apprenticeship, which is what my middle brother Daniel did, who's now a successful businessman and has been for decades. And then my youngest brother, Florian, who went the same route I did, gymnasium academic, but dropped out and got his degree in his 30s, then went to college, got his master's, and now works as a curator in a museum. He's an archaeologist. So there are several different ways to go about getting an education, but at the time it was all very much in strata. It was and sixth grade was the time when basically you were set for life in that system. The good news is it's no longer like that. There are many more variables possible, but yeah, I had shop in elementary school. I had wood shop, and it's Natalie didn't mention that her younger sister Angelica is taking that wood shop class at that high school, because for two reasons. One, she wants to go into fashion merchandising, and we like the idea of her learning how to measure correctly and putting stuff together, and then it doesn't work, and learning from that. But also because we knew what that college and career readiness class was like, and we thought I'd rather have her make a cabinet than learn personal finance from a YouTube video. So we were very my wife and I were very deliberate about that. So I had shop back at the time. We in high school we also had home ec, which in Switzerland meant you went to a house in the mountains, overlooking, if you know Interlaken and Bernese Oberland, where all the tourists go, overlooking that. So gorgeous, but very remote. And you learned how to cook, and you learned how to sew, and you learned very, very basic finance skills that really didn't go very far. But I learned how to darn a sock, which is pretty useless, and wood shop. So, I kind of know what's out there, what we could have done, or what you could have learned. And because of that, we're trying to fix the gaps. So when Natalie talking about making a quesadilla and her classmates can't even do that, we cook together. I'm trying to teach the kids how to cook, and I'm not a chef by any standards, but I can make myself something to eat, which is kind of what the goal is.
I had an interesting experience yesterday, which relates to this. I was so after leaving Babson after 1 year, they didn't throw me out, but they just encouraged me to go somewhere else and don't take accounting. So I knew what I wanted to do is I wanted to be involved in show business. In other words, I grew up watching TV 24/7 practically, and watched the news broadcasts and watched the cowboy movies and I Love Lucy and these other shows. And I said, "Gee, this is what I want to do, but I don't know how to do that." And so part of that was being a salesman and learning about marketing and communicating. Today they call it brand. Back then it's who you are and what you do. But I was taught the rudiments of that by some really smart people. And I'm still doing it, only applying it to what we're doing. So long story is that I went away from home and into the countryside in Western Massachusetts to a small, it was a college, but kind of a funded place. That time it was all guys. right near a girls' college, but it was just, this college was just for guys. Now it's co-ed and they have a graduate school and they've really grown. But I excelled in that environment, in the rural environment away from the city. And during the early Vietnam days, it was rough. And I didn't like the drugs that are going on in the city, and I didn't like the politics. It was just like overwhelming. Being out away from that 100 miles away, it's like countryside, cows, and trees, and clean air, and no noise. And I reveled in that and made friends and got what I call a very good education, and what led to what I'm doing now. And the marketing myopia prof was at that school, and the social psychology prof was in that school. And these two guys, and then a couple other teachers, they were like not godlike to me, but they had all the answers that I needed. And then I had to apply and put things together. So during that time, some senior guys who were running the newspaper, the college newspaper, noticed that I had a way with words, if you will. So they said, why don't you write something and we'll put it in the newspaper, and we're moving on next year, and you could become editor and publisher of the college paper if you do it right and people like you. I said, okay, I'll try it. So in Boston University and even Harvard, but it's mostly around Boston University, it was like ground zero of anti-war at that time, and drugs and really good rock music as well. But I wasn't there, and I was 100 miles away and didn't want to go there. And I wasn't right wing, but I didn't have a left wing inch in me. So I wrote an article for the seniors who ran the newspaper, and it was about why I don't think the way those kids do. And I didn't, if I remember correctly, I said, I rose a question, I'm not sure why, but I don't want that. I just want to have peace. I want to have good food, good friends, calmness, and I don't want to get into politics. So I wrote an article that almost was the reverse of that, and those guys published it and put it on the front page. And against the people who were violently anti-war. It could be anti-war, but you don't have to do it violently. And I wrote that, and they put it a major headline. And this was a conservative place, not a liberal place. But it wasn't, there was no such thing as right wing. It was just conservative. And it was a raving hit, and I got noticed. And the professors that I had, including these two or three guys that I just mentioned, they took an interest in what I was doing and what I wanted to do, and blah, blah, blah. And then this is the guy who I mentioned previously who talked about marketing myopia, and Peter Drucker, and the Gospels of, uh, 20th century business management. And I learned that from them, and then applied it as I matured more and grew up. And then I became the editor of the newspaper, and it won some awards and all that. It was great fun. And then I ran for class president and lost, but the experience was good. And I was the president of the Hillel Club. Again, this is a small college. So there was a Newman Club, which was Catholic oriented, and some other club, which was more Protestant oriented. And so me and these two other guys, they were all leaders of the respective units, we went to a bar down the hill that sold beer for a dime a glass, this big. We called them dimes, right? And so we set up, after a few of those drinks, we set up what's called the Interfaith Council, and we started holding meetings together. And there was a Bible professor in this college as well, who happened to be originally from Germany and still spoke with a heavy German accent, but he talked about the Bible and from a Protestant point of view, and how it all started and what were they doing and how it relates to U.S. living. And anyway, it was really interesting. He and I hit it off. And he always called on me for my opinion during this class because I think I was the only guy named Cohen in that class. And it gave me joy, but it also gave me a lot of confidence of public speaking, which I really didn't have before. And then I realized how good that was as part of a marketing degree and what to do with it from a practical point of view. Public speaking, being on the radio. So I took over running the college radio station and spun some records, and it was just a know-nothing thing. It wasn't anything big. But all of that experience led to me making the dean's list and being in the National Honor Society and things like that. And that never would have happened if I had stayed in the at home area or back in the city and impacted by that different world out there at the time. The college asked me about 2 months ago. They tracked me down. I'm class of 68. Natalie, just to give you an idea of how long ago that was. And they asked me, would I take over the class and try to get more involvement in the college from people who are long gone from away from the college. And so so they call it class champion, and my job would be to reach out. They would help me. They'd be my secretaries and doers. I just needed to tell them what to do. And so I agreed. And it was it started like 30 days ago, and we already got some response from guys who I haven't spoken to since 1968 or 69. It was really good. And more about this guy, his name is Jeff, who lives in Connecticut, always has, Eastern Connecticut. He wound up doing this fantastic thing in China 30 years ago. And it was an international language and business development organization, which he founded with some other people. And they had a big shebang signing in the Great Hall in Peking at the time, in Tiananmen Square. And that was that guy's story. And so then there's another guy, Bob, who went into selling municipal bonds on Wall Street and became the country's #1 municipal bond salesman. All right, so Cuppy is his name. He's on the board of directors, oversight, and has given millions to the school over the years. So he sent me a nice note, and he happens to be living now in Corona del Mar.
Okay.
It's yeah, some fancy place. And
We
but
can
we
get some
have
dimes with him.
we didn't yet get together, but we will, and we've been communicating. And so then I get a call, an email from Susan, who's VP development of the college today, and he says, we want to showcase what you're doing, what you've done with your life, because our students could relate to exactly what you're doing, and the fact that you're an old guy doing this modern stuff is going to relate to them, and we want to bring the college community together, and we want you to lead the way. So they set up a Zoom interview with just 3 general questions, and the rest was just conversation, just like we're doing this. And that was produced yesterday. and it's getting tremendous reviews on the campus back in Massachusetts. So, I mean, I feel really good about what you should teach in school and when. And that's how all this topic came to be. I really appreciate you people joining in and bringing today into it. So the community college idea in California, Southern California in particular, that's a good one. It works. And it does the same kind of thing that this Northeastern University in Boston was doing a long time ago. But I don't see that happening as much in San Diego. They do have community colleges, but I don't see, I haven't really studied it, but it's not public like what the Northeastern University was doing, and apparently what is going on in Fullerton. That seems to be a really good program.
Well, I do know from a friend that the in Escondido, the Palomar Community College is pretty good. And yes, I do know that Fullerton Community College is also amazing. It has amazing programs, and
That's really good
amazing,
because in the
yeah.
older days, the idea of community college was a laughing stock. It was just an extension of high school from a negative point of view. But now it's very practical and very meaningful and a stepping stone.
I
Yeah,
would, oh,
maybe I can explain why Natalie's in community college. That was also very deliberate. The way I look at in a university education was a very European way, which is it's all based on what you're actually learning. And the objective for my daughters was we want them to, well, first of all, they can learn whatever they want, but we want that education to be as good as possible, as efficient as possible, and as cheap as possible. And once you start realizing that community college teaches you the basics of any subject, academically or a trade, then you realize that it might make sense to go and learn, for instance, the basics of anthropology in Natalie's case, or French in Natalie's case, at a community college with no tuition, dedicated teachers, small classes, very different from what you said, Ken. Natalie has classes of what, 20, maybe 30 people, maybe even
yeah,
less,
You're
less
really, really
sometimes.
lucky to have that.
right? For free.
Yeah.
And then after those 2 years, to then move on and take the more advanced classes at a university. So once you overcome that stigma and you realize that a lot of people are paying for the brand of the college that their kids go to, it's, Gucci, Harvard, who cares, right? Being provocative, but it's a little bit like that. It's a brand, and they're wearing the logos and the bumper stickers and all that. Once you realize that, you can really look at the curriculum, what people are learning, and how it's being taught and what it costs. It's a no-brainer. And plus the fact that Natalie wanted to live close by, unlike you, Ed. So there was no reason for her to go to, say, Cal State Fullerton and live at home and pay a lot more tuition, and learn the same things the first 2 years.
And if I may add on to that, I have friends who I went to high school with, and they didn't really know what they wanted, but they knew that like they knew Cal State Fullerton was like the university, so they were like, okay, yeah, I'll just go there. And now in our second year of college, I see them now going to Fullerton College, and I've ran into them, and I'm like, I thought you were at the university. And they tell me that yes, but the university, it was expensive and it was so many people and everything was so overwhelming and they don't even know what they want. So they were like, okay, well, I guess I'll just go to community college to actually find out what I want. And when there are teachers who will talk to you, or like professors who will talk to you for hours at community college, the class sizes are smaller. I mean, listen, the class size in and of itself, smaller. But then, it's like people don't really show up, people want to sleep in, and then all of a sudden there's 8 people in your class on like a Tuesday, and you're like, wow, this is tiny. And the professor talks to you one-on-one. My French 2 class was literally 6 people. So
For
it,
free. Isn't that
for free,
insane?
yes.
So this
So
college I
Wow.
went to outside of Boston in the countryside was called Nichols College. Uh, it was originally a prep school for wealthy guys, and then morphed into an accredited 4-year college, maybe 60, 70 years ago. And now it's a graduate school, and they have all these women there and a couple of thousand students. You are really fortunate to be in that situation, Natalie, because that kind of atmosphere, not as tiny as that, but that's what I experienced. It was like a ticket to ride. It was like fresh air and resuscitation of my life because it was going nowhere, going in circles, with a lot of confusion. And but I found myself, and then I had some guidance, and combination of people caring and nature, good eating, no drugs other than lots of wine and beer, but that was enough for me at the time.
And I would say, I mean, obviously I'm fortunate for everything in my life, but I would say that community college, the one that I go to, it is incredibly accessible. Like they make themselves as accessible as possible to all types of students. And they have all sorts of programs to help with if you need, like, for example, financial aid help. They have all sorts of programs for that. They have a food bank. If if you can't afford your groceries, you can just go and get food from the food bank for free. And there's just all these programs
Now that's what
to,
your friend Israel was talking about.
yes, exactly.
Yeah.
There are so many programs to try to make it so that as many people as possible, doesn't matter your background, your, economic status, it doesn't matter. They are trying to make sure as many people as possible get this very amazing education with these small classes, these teachers who they do care, but also they want to, help you. Like they are really going out of their way trying to help you. And if you have questions, they will talk with you about it for quite a while. And I think it does allow people not only to start thinking about, okay, well, what do I want to do after this? But there are literal paths that people are, they are taking you to the office where you can transfer. They are literally guiding you. These professors for your further education.
And they put their stamp of approval,
Yes, they write
and that
references.
opens the doors faster.
Exactly. And so I'm the president of the anthropology club at my college, and I I know almost everybody, almost all of the professors in the anthropology department. I kind of I make myself known. I introduce myself and I'm, that I'm interested, that I want to know where did they go to college? I want my PhD. Do my professors, where did they get their PhDs? And they will talk to me. They're excited that I'm excited. And I really think that that is massive, especially for students who might not be sure. If you have a professor who is super, super excited about, auto shop, for example, something like that, you're taking an auto shop class, you kind of like cars, you're not really sure. You have a professor who's excited and who will go help you figure out what you need to get a job in that industry. That is definitely helping students.
I talked to one of the auto shop instructors, and there was an event that Fullerton College had, and they had a car show. I like cars, so I went there, talked to the one of the instructors, and it was amazing. One of my goals for retirement is to take that class, do my own oil changes and stuff. was great.
Yeah. Well, for the first time today, I'm speechless. Ken, would you take over?
It took a while, though. Took a while to get you there, Ed.
We got you, Ed.
They got you.
Yeah, Natalie, it's wonderful to hear you describe the way that your education is proceeding and the offerings in the community college. The idea of professors getting to know the students individually, your interests, your drive, your aptitudes, your goals, and helping to you establish a curriculum, help you learn and grow and develop. That's wonderful. Think how different that is in a class with 1,200 students. Yeah, you can see the professor maybe during office hours, except that's going to get canceled. And you might not even know where the building is on this gigantic campus. What you're talking about to me is just the heart of an excellent education with that kind of focus and true professional approach to each student. And I think it really helps those who are late bloomers. You get to college and you haven't really settled into who or what you are or where you're going, and you're on some giant university campus, you get lost. You're not going to get lost with that kind of education. You're going to get found, and you'll really get some good hands-on guidance as to what's interesting to you and a good path for your career. Not locking you into it. This is what you have to do, but opening you up to new vistas today. That's really something I hadn't even thought about. And now you take a field like anthropology, and it's tapped an area of real interest and aptitude for you, combining avec le français with French, and you're on your way. So I think it's a wonderful description, and I think it's something that would really help young people, particularly those that end up going to a college that has a big name, but they're not quite ready for that type of experience. And that experience might not be ready for them. Hey, look, you're a lower division student. I'm working on my research. I'm working with my grad students. I'm working with the upper division students. Just take these classes and I'll see you in a couple of years. And by then, who knows? Because you'll remember in your education all that individual interaction far more than a lecture that you sat through on some topic that's kind of arcane to begin with. This is what's going to help you build your education and knowledge in your career. I think it's wonderful. It's a great description you provided.
So
I
what?
just remember, oh, sorry.
No, you first.
I just remembered something really quick I wanted to say. That there's an English teacher, the one that I work with at the college, who literally has offered, every single week, multiple days a week for a few hours, has offered workshops to go through with students, not only his English students, but like any students, and go over their personal insight questions for the UC application. He's an English teacher, English professor teaching English 100, and he's going through and like revising and editing all these students' applications.
Well,
That's
now I'll
why-
tell you one thing
right.
that'll annoy you, okay, real quickly. When I went to Cal a gazillion years ago, there was no tuition fee. It was free.
No.
All we paid was what was called a reg fee, a registration fee, which would be $89. Initially, it was per semester, then they switched to the quarter system. That's it. And now not. It's a little different.
So your book under the this one is performance appraisals and phrases for dummies. So the dummies are people who what?
Yeah, dummies is not used in the pejorative sense. If I called someone, yeah, I was thinking this person is a real dummy. No, it's really basically trademarked by Wiley Publishing. And it's really saying those who are interested in learning more about a given topic in a real clear, hands-on, practical way. Here's a book that'll really help you. So it's that kind of approach of being very useful, functional, and give you some tools that'll help you in myriad areas that these books cover.
Interesting. So, my friend Christian, you're speaking tomorrow at the SCRC.
I am.
And what is your topic?
Well, it's about the relocation industry and whether it is still relevant.
And so, meaning in a post-election kind of
In a
world?
post, people aren't moving anymore as much as they used to world. The election, while it has something to do with it, this is bigger than the election and predates the election. And I came up with that topic because I lost my job. And the reason I lost my job was because there were layoffs, because they were financial layoffs. And one of the ways I figured out what to do next was to really dive into this topic and find out, should I even stay in this industry? I mentioned my interest in personal finance. I was seriously thinking about becoming a tax advisor, and looking into what that would take to learn. So the topic is about what kind of value are we offering in the relocation industry, and the panel that I've gathered contains people from the household goods moving side, from the destination services side. That's the people that help people that come into your area, help them find housing, schools, etc., get settled. Temporary housing there's a representative for temporary housing, and then there's a representative for the relocation management companies, which is where I worked for the last 20 years. So we will all talk about this on a panel for an hour, and I'm very excited. The people are great that I'll be working with, and we'll have probably about 90 people in the audience. It's only my second time on a panel, the first time I'm actually leading one. And needless to say, all the experience that I've gained from being on your show for now well over 40 times will serve me in good stead.
Well, I'm honored to have you, I'll tell you that. So
Thank you.
I just want to clarify what the theme and the title is and who's involved for our audience. Um, I wrote down just now the old-fashioned way. What kind of value is the industry offering?
Well, are we still relevant? Is the relocation industry still relevant? Because you can automate, you can use AI, you can use lump sums. Here's money, go move. What kind of value?
And remote rather than move
Or
your
remote, absolutely.
stuff.
All of these things,
Right.
right? So it's to show and explore what kind of value we're bringing to people who have to relocate, and
And
why
so,
our approach is better
yeah.
than just giving them money.
And so household goods, destination services,
Yeah.
all right,
Temporary housing
temp housing and RMC. So
and the
what's
RMC.
missing? Real estate broker?
There is no real estate broker on the panel. It's kind
But
of
that's sort of a destination service, but it's much
destination.
more.
Yeah, right. Destination services would be somebody that's employed by, well, the relocation management company or the company itself, the employer, to help people get settled in. So they work for them. They're not selling anything like a real estate agent would.
So let me share something with you, and perhaps this is some news. Also on December 12th, that's 12/12, I'm producing a live conference with segments that will be broadcast and recorded. It'll be in New York. And as I think many of you know already out there, that HSBC, the London Global Trade Bank, actually London and Hong Kong, HSBC stands for Hong Kong Shanghai Banking Corp, is a British bank founded like more than 100 years ago when England was the world's leader, colonizer, I guess. Maybe slave shipper. I'm not sure of what all of that history is, but certainly economic strength. And HSBC has hosted me in their London headquarters 3 times, and the 4th time is coming up this spring. I'm really honored to have them as a partner, of course, and it's quite a big stage. So I got introduced to the U.S. headquarters leadership recently, and now the New York HSBC headquarters is hosting this meeting for the first time, and it's coming up next month, a month from yesterday, and it's divided into 2 topics. The first one in the morning is about the psychological safety in the workplace and the relevance, not just crisis management or physical violence or mental violence, but also mind-blowing or lack of total care of the employee and family when appropriate, when sent on assignment. And the damage that a non-total care approach is doing to people, and then why the assignees quit and oftentimes
Right.
go to a competitor all trained, ready to go.
And we'll talk about that too.
That is topic number one.
We'll talk about
But
that.
I bring in two psychiatrists and psychologists as well from London remote and New York in person. And I just moderate it all. But and the Heather, who's been on our programs, is the London business psychologist. And she's the author of this now famous report that dealt with the Permits Foundation. In other words, work permits, allowing spouses under the dual career dilemma when the spouse cannot or partner cannot work in that country. And it creates a financial problem, of course, and an emotional problem for sure. And that could lead to a divorce. It could lead to anger, non-productivity, and God forbid the assignment blows up. And the people who are impacted are high earners because they're very valuable employees. So the company wants to avoid that. So that's the theme: London, New York, in person and video. So I want to make sure you guys know about it. You'll be invited to attend. There is a small registration fee, however, but not a lot of money, $49. But what you're covering in person is really good. Are you recording it? Is it being recorded? Do you know?
I don't think so.
That's really tragic. Okay. And so,
Well, we want people to be free also, you know, we
yeah,
want them to
right.
speak freely.
Right. Okay. So I would like you to come on the New York program virtually and add to your perspective, not only personal, but what you learned from tomorrow's
Be
event.
happy to.
I was going to go travel up on Amtrak, but I'm not going to do that. I need to stick to my knitting here today and tomorrow. But I would have loved to have seen you in person again. It's been years.
We'll make that happen one day.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure. So it's really interesting. SCRC had contacted me about do I want to volunteer for any positions, and I said yes, programming and
There you go.
and thing. So they never got back to me. So
Well, they're still deciding all that though, but
so
yeah.
I've decided that that's a sign that I've got other things and responsibilities right here. I'm not going to come. But I'm still interested. But because I would do what I'm doing now and give it more juice and power. And now anyone could do what I'm doing. This may not do it my way, that's all. But I'm not the only one doing videos. So Dr. Ken Lloyd, your book comes out.
I'm sorry, I have to drop off. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, okay. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you
Take
very
care.
much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Natalie.
I'll
Natalie, you're
stay.
welcome to stay.
She's
I'm gonna
staying.
have to
I'm
run in a
leaving.
couple of minutes too.
Yeah. Okay, Ken, so in the New York program, I invite you to come and talk about the new book and display the cover.
Oh, thank you. That's wonderful.
Yeah, it'll be a big
I
stage for
appreciate it.
you. Yeah, and the timing couldn't be any better
Yeah.
for you.
It's perfect.
Okay, so thank you again. This went on a little longer and a little bit more personal than I ever imagined it would. But I feel good.
Absolutely. Very enjoyable discussion, and thanks to
Yeah.
Kristen and Natalie, and of course to you, Ed.
Thank
Great.
you so much.
Natalie, you're a voice for your generation.
Thank
you for
you.
using this platform.
Thank you for allowing me to.
Oh, you're kidding. I'm honored.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Cheers.
Bye, all.
Bye.
Be well.
Thank you.